Our next guest is Adam Ashton. He and his friend Adam Jones are two Aussie guys who started their very own podcast, one where they share the best bits of the best books and interview some of the world's best authors. The What You Will Learn podcast was born when the boys realised that there was not one single book which could offer all the answers to improve every area of your life. The podcast has quickly found success with over 60,000 downloads a month. Please welcome Adam. Hey Adam.
G'day, Anne. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you. Likewise, we're very excited to get you as a guest.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to do it. It's a great show. I'm looking forward to chatting today about all things books, podcasts, and whatever else is in store.
Now, Adam, give us a rundown of your podcast.
So, yeah, as you mentioned, myself and my mate, also named Adam, we started the show called What You Will Learn back in June 2016. And so the premise of the show is that we read and review sort of the best bits from the best books. So every week we do a book, all sort of non-fiction, mostly sort of businessy, personal development sorts of books like How to Influence and Influence People, The 4-Hour Work Week, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But we've also sort of gradually branched out into other things like science or psychology or history or spirituality, books like Sapiens, The Power of Now, Thinking Fast and Slow. Basically, we love reading, we love learning, and we're constantly trying to open our eyes to new ideas.
Where do you get the time to read all these books?
It's not any one specific time, but I think it's just a matter of finding little pockets throughout the day. The best time is definitely the commute into work on the train, which is 15 to 20 minutes on the train twice a day.
True.
Sitting at the cafe for 10 minutes, or really there is like a lot of time I think people spend perhaps watching TV, watching Netflix. I myself can't say that I never watch TV, but if you can just slice off 20 or 30 minutes each night, that quickly adds up to getting close to a book a week. Maybe
just getting off your phone for that time too would be a good idea for most people.
That's a big time vortex there for sure.
That's brilliant. Hey, so you've interviewed such people as Janine Ellis from Shark Tank and Boost Juice fame, also Dr. Carl, Mia Friedman and Naomi Simpson from Red Balloon. Who would be your most memorable interview?
They're all phenomenal. I'd say we've probably done, maybe 60 interviews now. And
wow.
All of those that you listed were great. We loved going to Dr. Carl's house, and he showed us how to expertly stack a dishwasher for the maximum mathematical efficiency to get as many plates in as possible.
He truly is amazing. I love that man. I absolutely love that man.
He's such a phenomenal guy, and on mic, and as soon as the mics are off, he's exactly the same.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear.
He's absolutely phenomenal. Some of my other international idols, I love speaking with Seth Godin, who's my number one all-time favorite.
Wow.
Books like The Dip and Purple Cow and Tribes, and I love Robert Greene, who wrote The 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nature. He was phenomenal. But I'd have to say the most memorable was an author. His name is Dan Ariely. He's done a lot of TED Talks. He's had millions of views. His most well-known book is called Predictably Irrational.
Right.
And it was memorable because he's from the US, but we went to Sydney and recorded in his hotel. We brought some cheap red wine, and we thought it was expensive for two young 20-year-old blokes, but he didn't enjoy it quite as much as we did. Then we went to the ballet with him as well, and we got a kebab on the way. So that was very, very memorable.
That is brilliant. I mean, a 20-year-old isn't expected to know about good red wine, are they? I mean, really?
Yeah, no, exactly. And we thought, this very famous, best-selling international author, we loaded up the bank accounts to go to some kind of 5-star restaurant to take him to before the ballet, but we were just walking, and he just said, "Oh, what's this? Let's just go get a kebab." And so we thought, "Oh, perfect."
That's brilliant. I love that.
It was definitely memorable.
This is Ants Talk.
Also, Adam, you boys started the podcast with literally nothing and now have over 600,000 downloads a month. Why do you think it's found such success?
I think, as you said, we literally started with nothing. It was really just a bit of a trial for us at the start. We were just two dudes who had sort of just finished uni. We were just starting work. It wasn't like we had any kind of name or rep or audience beforehand. In fact, our first episode had like 3 listeners, myself, my co-host, and probably my mum as well. So we really just sort of built up from pretty close to zero. And I think a big part of it was just sort of we kept at it. There was no real magic bullet of one thing that we did that blew it up or anything. But, we've done it every week. We've kept pretty consistent. The early episodes weren't great, but we always sort of kept focusing on improving and getting better, both in terms of the content and the way we deliver it. As we mentioned, we've had some sort of bigger name, best-selling author guests that are somewhat popular, and maybe people are searching for them. But really, I think, it's just sort of, good lessons, good books. I think lots of people want to read more books, but as we sort of talked about, that it's sometimes hard to find the time or to make the time to read books, and there's so many great lessons out there that we could learn, but we try to package it, get you the best stuff in 20 to 30 minutes, and then if you want to go and read the book for yourself, great, but otherwise you've probably got 60% worth of the book just by listening to that. So I think it's something that people like, the feeling of reading a book without having to actually read the whole book.
Sure. I'm actually not one to watch movies. I just think it's too much time and too much attention to give one thing. I really do. I actually love hearing from people that have seen a movie and they sort of suggest it to me and they say, this is why you've got to see it, why I've got to see it, especially if they know me well. Because if they know me well and know what I like, they will know that I'll always go and see that movie. I'll always download it to watch. Because without fail, if I'm recommended something good, I'm always going to do it. That's literally what you guys are doing.
That's a good point, because it is sort of, to read a book might take you 8 or 10 hours, and that's a big time investment if it's not a great book. But if you can listen to 10 episodes from us, and that takes, maybe 5 hours, and then you think, wow, this book really sounds great, then rather than, reading all 10, you can pick the best one and think, yeah, that's something that I want to commit the 10 hours to reading.
Yeah, no, I agree, because I actually think that with books, there's nothing worse than when you're reading a book and then halfway through you're thinking, am I enjoying this? Because it's not really grabbing me. And if all of a sudden you're going to carry on, of course, because you've got to give this book a chance. But then when you get to the end, it's such a big disappointment. It's like, what have I just done?
Yeah, and it's definitely, I find it myself hard to give up on a book. Maybe something I should get better at if I'm not enjoying a book, but I always tend to push through it. But I could definitely, if I was able to put down a book and pick up something better, then it's probably better use of time, but something I still need to work on.
See, maybe you were born for that podcast because, you've got that skill already inside.
Exactly.
So why books? Have you always been a big fan?
I honestly, after high school, really didn't read any book for a good couple of years. And I was, for my sort of journey to finding books, was that I'd gone to a pretty good school, I'd worked pretty hard, got pretty good grades, got into a good uni course, and then got a good job, and was sort of on the traditional sort of path to stereotypical success of working your way up the corporate ladder. But I was always wanting to learn more and do more and always improve myself. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts myself,
right,
and a lot of businessy sort of podcasts, and that people kept talking about, the books that they were reading or what books would you recommend to people, and all these successful people that kept talking about books. So I thought, well, there's probably something there and I should probably give it a go. And the first, I guess, quote-unquote real book I read of my own volition was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes. I know that book very well.
Yeah, it's like an old 80 or 90-year-old book that sort of stood the test of time. And my mum was just sort of absolutely blown of just these completely different ideas and different ways of doing things and lessons I could take away, and I could apply them to my job and my real world, and I saw sort of instant results from some of the lessons that I learned. And it really was sort of the gateway, I guess, to wanting to read more. And, just a book, it's only $30 to buy and 8-10 hours of reading time, and you could learn one lesson that completely shifts your life or your career or your business. And I sort of got hooked on learning and trying to find that next nugget of gold that is inevitably in most books.
Yes.
And so I sort of, I was reading at the start businessy sort of books like The 4-Hour Workweek, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Crush It, Millionaire Fastlane, these sorts of books that were all great ideas for business. And from there, my interests kept growing and my reading list kept widening. And I got pretty much addicted to books.
I mean, I just love the visual of books. I love books just sitting around my house. I don't know actually what it is, but I love them. And I think that most people, especially at the moment, I actually found it really interesting with that Marie Kondo, the Japanese lady. She spruces your house to beautify it. And she organizes your whole existence. She was actually on one of the episodes where she, very controversially, because people were literally up in arms. I mean, up in arms. But basically what she was saying is that you should actually get rid of most of your books because they no longer spark joy.
Oh, that's painful for me to hear.
I mean, I love her. I love what she does. She really speaks to me because, I'm organized. Well, I'm a hoarder, but I'm also I'm an organized hoarder. And basically she blew me out of the water. But when she got to that point, I was like, yeah, no. Because a good book to me, especially one I'm going to have around my house and keep around my house, it's actually really spoken to me, and literally it's somehow changed me as a human. And that's, because I've read it. And therefore, I think that, giving away that sort of thing, that like it's a lesson, it's an appreciation of what it did for me. So I'm just like, that has to stay in the house.
Oh, 100%. And I'm much the same in that I read exclusively physical books. I can't seem to connect with digital ebooks or Kindle or anything. So mine's all physical. So I've got 2 big bookshelves.
Wow.
I feel like there's one part of it, I guess, is almost like the trophy aspect of this is the stack of all the books I've read and all the visual representation of all the lessons I've learned. Another part of it is because we're sort of reading actively, because we're going to have to go back and make a podcast episode out of it. I'm taking my own notes as I go, so it's almost more personalized than just the book sitting there.
Sure.
But also I've got 2 bookshelves. Each have got 6 rows on them, and so I've filled up 5 rows of books that I have read, and then the other 7 rows are filled with books that I haven't read yet. So the things that I'll just go on a spree and I'll buy 10 books and I'll only end up reading 3, and then I'll buy the next 10. And so it's almost like another visual representation of, hey, yes, well, I have read a lot of books and learnt a lot of lessons. There's still so many more that I haven't got to yet. So there's still so much more out there that I need to remind myself that whilst I tend to feel pretty smart having read so many books, I've got to stay humble and recognize that there's still so much more out there that I still don't know yet.
That's true. Funny enough, I got involved in it was actually a little bit of an internet craze where someone on Facebook would they were doing like a book club, and then you had to send them a message, and then they would send you an email. And basically what it turned into, that everybody that joined, they were actually they had to give 1 book. So basically I sent 1 book to somebody, and then we would all receive, I think I ended up receiving like 12 or 14 books or something from different people.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was incredible because it was things that I would never consider reading. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then once I read them, I'm like, I'm so glad I got that.
I think that's a good idea to a bit of positive serendipity, I guess, of things that you would never choose yourself. Like for me, as I said, I sort of got stuck in the business books, and I was reading a lot of business books, and there are some great lessons there, but it's almost a bit of diminishing returns in that the first book you read is going to blow you away, the second book's going to be amazing, but after you've read 30 books on the same topics talking about similar ideas, the impact sort of wears off a little bit. So it's good to open your eyes to different ideas. I was part of a similar message, and I got to shamefully admit that I broke the chain. I never did.
Oh no!
Book, and then I never passed on the message. So apologies to everyone before me that missed out on their books.
I think they're all still in therapy.
Ants Talk. It's like Oprah, but not.
Now, listen, I see that Stephen Pressfield and his book, The War of Art, which actually focuses on resistance faced by artists, athletes and entrepreneurs who are trying to break through creative barriers, was actually reviewed by you guys. This actually really speaks to me, this book. I'm sure it does to a lot of our listeners. Can you tell me about it?
Oh, it's an absolutely phenomenal book. We made our list. We've probably read over 200 books each now. And we made our list of like what we call the top 50 best books of all time. Obviously, as I said, we haven't read every single book, but they're our favourites for the moment. And this one features very high up there. It's just a free document we made. If you want to check it out at whatyouwilllearn.com/TOP50, top 50, you can get that. And the War of Art is on there, and it's phenomenal. And Stephen Pressfield says that we all live two lives, or we all have two lives. We've got our real life and what he calls our unlived life. And the unlived life is the things that we dream about, the things that we wish for, the things we hope we can do, and our fantasies for one day. And he says that the only thing really standing in between these two is what he terms the resistance, and that's resistance with a capital R. And I've got a quote from the book here. He says that the secret that real writers know that wannabe writers don't know is that it's not the writing that's the hard part. What's hard is actually sitting down to write. And he says that what stops you from sitting down is the resistance. And so Stephen Pressfield's an author, but the same idea applies to anything that requires a little bit of willpower or a bit of emotional labor, whether that's starting a new diet or exercise regime, launching a new business, overcoming an addiction, starting some kind of education course, taking a political or moral stand. Anything that sort of requires you to do something a little bit uncomfortable. He says there's this resistance in the back of our mind that's stopping us. You know, we've got this fear and it's saying, don't do that. You don't want to do that. Resistance is really your enemy. He says that it's invisible. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you can't hear it, but it can be felt. It's within us. We may think that we're the only ones suffering from resistance, but really everybody suffers from it. And it's something that really just stands in our way and stops us from doing the thing that we dream about, the thing that we wish we could do. And it sort of says, it pushes us away from that and says, just go back to what you've been doing. You don't want to do this, really. It's too hard. So just maybe, as you say, go back and jump on the phone or watch a bit more TV. It's, something that, things like procrastination is the resistance in disguise. Like, if we told ourselves, we're not going to do this anymore, it's almost like this cognitive dissonance. Like, we've got this dream, but then we tell ourselves we're not going to do it. So instead, the resistance come in masked as procrastination and says, I'll do it tomorrow. And so you're not telling yourselves that you're not going to do it. You're just going to say, I'm going to do it tomorrow. And of course, that the resistance, it's won that first battle. And so it's next time you're less likely to actually sit down and do the work that you want to do.
There is so much truth in that. I need to get this book, by the way.
It's a real power packet. It's a real rocket up the butt to get you going, that's for sure.
It's funny, when you look at life, there's those things that we all aspire to, and we sit there daydreaming about, aspiring to them while we're sitting on our phone, on Facebook. And I think that most people just, it's all that self-talk that we've got that, we're not good enough and all that sort of stuff. And, you finally do maybe take some steps and, when you actually do that thing, and it might be doing exercise, it might be auditioning, but when you actually do take those first few steps and you get that such an excited feeling, like that buzz you actually get inside when, you actually see that you can do it and that it is possible. I mean, it's like when, me wanting to audition and be a singer, and you push yourself that little bit more, and it's such a great lesson in life.
Tune in each week for Ants Talk to learn about real-life stories, celebrities, and everything in between.
I can literally see everybody running outside right now to get that book.
Oh, 100%. And he says that like this resistance, it's going to stop us at first, and we're sort of in this constant battle, us against the resistance. And as you say, if you can beat the resistance, and the resistance might have told you, oh, you're never going to get it anyway, so don't even bother going to the audition.
Yeah.
But if you can take yourself to that audition, you've beaten the resistance, you're much more likely to take whatever step comes next. You've almost weakened the resistance a little bit. And so whilst it's there, that very strong at the start to stop you, you need to continue to work through it and try and every time you come up in a battle against the resistance, show the resistance that you're the boss. And it's obviously something that can be beaten. If the resistance was so tough, we'd never have the Fifth Symphony, we'd never have Romeo and Juliet, we'd never have the Golden Gate Bridge. All of these amazing works of art and big successes are from people who have overcome the resistance. So whilst it feels impossible at the start, it's definitely achievable and you definitely can beat the resistance and do something amazing.
Hey Adam, what can you tell our listeners about finding answers to all the different aspects of a good life from what you've read and reviewed before?
That's a big question. There's a lot of lessons out there. As you sort of mentioned in the intro, there's no one book that has every single answer. There's no book that's going to tell you the meaning of life, or not yet anyway. So I think it is important to start reading and you'll discover new ideas. And if you keep reading, you'll discover more and more ideas. Some of the bigger lessons that tend to pop up, after our 100th book episode, we did like sort of our top 10 lessons that we'd learned. And these are some of the things that tend to pop up time and time again. And obviously there's 10 of them, but I've got a couple of major ones here I've highlighted. One is the importance of delayed gratification. So long-term satisfaction and success in the grand scheme of things will far outweigh any sort of instant gratification. So whether it's financially, whether it's if you say, no, I'm not going to go and buy Macca's today, I'm going to save that money, I'm going to bring my lunch from home. Over the longer term, if you can save up and go on a big holiday, the longer term happiness is going to be a lot better. Or whether it's exercise. In the short term, you really don't enjoy doing lifting that next bench press. But over the longer term, when you look back, you realize that there's a much greater happiness there from being fit and healthy, or doing anything uncomfortable in the short term, rather than just taking the easy way out in the short term, will tend to lead to some kind of bigger, much greater happiness and success in the longer term. So that's definitely one of the bigger ones. If you can try and resist the instant urge to be happy and satisfied right now, you're going to have something much bigger and better in the longer term.
Right. I mean, it's sort of like exercise, even in those first few seconds where you're just like, oh my God, I just don't even want to do this. But then those few seconds after you have done it and the endorphins are kicking in, it's sort of like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that.
Oh, definitely. You've to circle back around, you've beaten the resistance in that one instance. But then obviously in the longer term, when, after a year of running every single day, in the moment it wasn't great, but then you look back and you're much happier with yourself and how fit and healthy you are.
And you'll be like, look at my legs.
Exactly. And another big lesson is around the idea of getting in the arena as opposed to sitting on the sidelines.
Okay.
So a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines and watching the superstars. We're often envious of people who are achieving great success, but we're never really getting in the arena ourselves and, taking a few hits, having a few failures in order to eventually lead to some kind of greater success. And so it's super important just to start small in whatever it is. So rather than sitting on the sidelines and watching on somebody else's success, think of what's something small you can do, even just as a little bit of a test to try it out and try to get in the arena there for just a little bit. Like say for our podcast starting off, we at first we just said, hey, let's do 10 episodes as a bit of a test. That's all we were going to commit to at first, and we thought, okay, what's the downside here? Is it's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of money, almost no money though in the grand scheme of things, just to grab a mic and sort of get set up. And what are the benefits? Well, obviously we're going to read 10 great books. We're going to learn a bunch of great stuff. We're going to retain more by having to actively read it, take notes, talk about it later. We're going to probably improve a little bit of our confidence, because it's bloody scary to turn that mic on and record your voice the first time.
Correct.
We're probably going to improve our speaking and our communication and our clarity. So there were all these benefits that came with just jumping into the arena, trying something out. And I didn't mention anything there about anybody listening. So that's like almost the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
We've got all of those amazing positive benefits. And then, hey, as the best case scenario, maybe somebody listens. So as I said, for us, it was sort of like at first there was a whole bunch of intrinsic things within our control that we were getting out of it. And then, hey, if somebody listens, that's even better.
That even brings me back to even wanting to be a singer, because, you know, a lot of people could just, instead of, you know, going sort of live, they could just do something online and submit that. And who knows what could happen, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Just taking that first small step. And when I say small, like, that's bloody tough to do. Even thinking about it now, I couldn't imagine putting the camera on and exposing myself in a way that it was, you know, singing to the camera. Like, it feels like such a massive step, but it is just you jumping into the arena, having a crack at something, being a little bit proactive.
Yeah.
And as you say, like, you know, where you're doing something that it feels a little bit tough. You know, we're beating the resistance, and who knows where it could lead in the end.
Yeah, so like they could even just sing to their camera and then submit it, and they're not having to face that sort of face-to-face paranoia, judgment, you know, inferior battle that we all go through when we're doing something public like that. I think with a lot of people too, the whole camera thing, like, you know, there's some people that find it really easy. I suppose, like, I mean, I'm 50, so, you know, I didn't grow up with all that sort of stuff, and so I find it like a huge battle to actually turn the camera back on myself and record. But some people find it so easy.
Yeah, I think I in some way agree, but in some ways disagree. Perhaps they have been doing it a lot. Like, say, for us, we're coming up to 200 episodes of our podcast, and someone says, oh, it's easy for you to turn the mic on and record a podcast and put it out into the world. But it definitely wasn't easy the first time, and even the first 50 times it wasn't easy. And we're still, even today when we're doing interviews, we still get pretty nervous. So maybe from you outside looking in, it looks like it's so easy for somebody else to do. But maybe that's just another excuse we're telling ourselves. And the first time is going to be tough, and the second time is going to be tough, but a little bit easier. By the 100th time, it won't be so tough, and people will be looking at you and saying, oh, it's easy for you to do that, but I couldn't.
Hey, I also noticed online when I was looking at your stats up, I don't know if you know, but I was having a look, and you've actually got a really strong male following. Do you think this is as unique as I do, or I mean, just big readers?
It's an interesting one, and it's an important question for sure. I think on one hand, it's probably because we are two blokes, and so probably the way we do things is the way that we do things, and it's probably the way that connects more with other blokes listening. That's not to say that there are no women listening and there are no women reading books, but it's probably just the types of people who are connecting with the way that we are doing it. One important thing that we almost ashamedly noticed, so we sort of do seasons where each year we'll have a month off and we'll start a new season. So last month we'd done 40 episodes of this new season, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that only 3 of those were interviews or books by female authors. So 3 out of 40, that's a pretty atrocious percentage. And it wasn't something that we'd decided, hey, let's just do all these men's books and we're going to ignore the women. It was just something that, you know, that's just what happened. It's almost this unconscious bias sort of a thing where the books that we as blokes were attracted to seem to be books by other male authors, but it's something that we decided ourselves that it's not something we want to keep doing, because we can't just do all blokes and just ignore female authors, because there's plenty of great books out there by female authors as well. So the last couple of weeks in particular, we've really made an effort we're never going to get to 50-50, but to just try to start in doing a few more great female authors' books. We looked at the stats, and in these sort of businessy, non-fiction, personal development sorts of books, 21% of those books are by female authors.
Wow.
So it's still not 50-50, but we're still way below that representative 21% as well. So it's something that we definitely made a bit of a mistake there, but something we're trying to rectify. And something we need to be more conscious of, obviously, because if we're not conscious of it, we saw what would happen, and then we'd do 37 out of 40 being by male authors.
Sure. I think a lot of the time it's because, a lot of people have, these misconceptions that all that women write is about romance. Do you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure that there probably, if our podcast was a different sort of podcast, that there'd be a different gender split in the listeners. But as you said, you can't just stereotype it that way and say that female authors are only good at writing erotica.
No, exactly. I mean, there's some brilliant female authors out there, and artists and singers and everything else.
Exactly.
Well, Adam, I really appreciate your time, and I thank you so much for coming on. And I think what you guys do is incredible. Like, I'm so envious that you get the chance to actually read these books that has got people's imaginations, their thoughts, their desires, so much in them, and that you get the chance to then review them and put them out to the world. I just think it's incredible. And I also hope that the podcast continues its success.
Thank you so much, man. I think the only thing I'd leave you with is just that idea that you just touched on there, that these books by these authors are somebody's life's work, whether it's decades of research or experience, all packaged into one pretty digestible book for you. So go out there and grab a book and start reading.
And also, Adam, if people want to listen to your podcast, tell us your details.
Yeah, so the podcast is What You Will Learn. Wherever you're listening to this, you can probably find us as well, or at whatyouvilllearn.com. And if you want to grab our top 50 best books of all time, that's whatyouvilllearn.com/top 50.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for your time, Adam.
Thanks for the chat. It was great to talk to you.
Likewise.
And look forward to your own podcasting success as well.
Thank you very much. Fingers crossed.
While you work, run, walk, or even relax. Ants Talk. Listen to some fabulousness.